Good morning, everyone. I can just imagine all the good mornings coming back. Welcome to the session on developing and implementing an ESL guided self-placement in an online format. My name is Luz Garcia, and I'm a faculty member and chair at Santa Rosa Junior College's ESL department. Welcome.
I'm Bita Bookman. I also at the ESL department at Santa Rosa Junior College.
So this is our agenda for this morning. Thank you all for joining in. Whether you're watching this live or afterward on recording, thank you for stopping by. You'll see in the agenda that we'll do some introductions, go over kind of the context of why we needed or why we chose to develop a guided self-placement, GSP, the enrollment process, the GSP development process. We'll take a look at the guided self-placement that we have in place currently, the feedback we've gotten from students, and then we'll have time for discussion, question, and answer. And I just wanted to preface it by saying that all of the information from numbers 3 through 6 are based on our experience at Santa Rosa Junior College, and it's limited to that experience. Thanks. So we'll get started with who's who and who's new. So I'd like to use the chat function for this. If you're here live, I'm glad that some of you have already started saying good morning and we see your names. But I'd love it if you could also tell us a little bit more about who you are. So in the chat, if you could write your affiliation, who you're here representing, or what institution you work for. And also, if you could put in your location today. So we'll see your name already, your affiliation, and then your location is what we like to see in the chat, just so we can start making some connections with y'all. And if you are new to the field, new to CATESL, or just new in general, make a note that you're new so that we can send you an extra welcome. Okay, thanks. Thank you. We have someone from British Columbia. All right. Great. Vita, go ahead.
For those of you who may not be familiar with the Assembly Bill 705, or commonly referred to as AB 705, this came into effect in 2017, January 2017. It's a state law that prohibits the use of placements, and that came from an equity lens. Research showed that students who are tested for placement, especially minority students, are placed in remedial courses when they could actually be successful in transfer level courses. And that remedial courses held them back, added to their cost of education, and affected retention. So the state of California came up with this new law that instead of placing students based on a placement test, they now use multiple measures, one of these three measures. So they now place high school students based on their high school coursework, grades, and GPA. Now, one of these measures is enough to place them into transfer level English and math. And when high school transcripts is not available, then they use self-reported high school information, or guided self-placement, or self-placement. And that's how our college started developing this guided self-placement or placement test for students who don't have a high school diploma from the U.S. or they don't have a transcript. And I believe the AB 705 was extended for the ESL courses until July 2021. So we are still in that grace period where we can still use our previous placement tests, but we are piloting the self-placement as test that will be not a test, but instrument, this guided self-placement instrument that will be used after July 2021.
Thank you. Before we move forward, I wanted just to mention, I should have mentioned it in the beginning, but we will be able to take questions and answers. So if you notice in the functionality of this webinar, there is a section for chat, which is fine, just kind of chiming in. But if you have a specific question that you would like answered, we may save those until the end, but whenever it comes to you, you can type in a question if that's something you're interested in having that discussion and having us chime in with our experience towards the end. So we'll be able to refer to that throughout the session. And then coming back to our presentation here, before we get into the details, as I mentioned, all of this is specific to Santa Rosa Junior College. And so I wanted to just kind of contextualize our ESL pathway. And if you notice at the bottom of this pathway, we have a transition class from non-credit into the credit pathway. And the guided self-placement that we have been piloting is only used for our credit classes. So our non-credit classes still have a different placement procedure, and we haven't quite started piloting anything or making changes with the non-credit placement. But for the credit pathway, guided self-placement is what we are piloting for all of the credit classes. We do have, it begins at the intermediate level, and then we go up until transfer level college composition. And the guided self-placement is for all of those levels there. Thank you. So the enrollment process, we have, just in terms of matriculation, the students will first need to apply in order to get a student ID. There's a recommended orientation, but many students skip that step, and then they go straight to taking the placement or finding out about the placement process, looking at and deciding on their options. And then they should indicate their course selection so that our assessment office has a record of what they have selected after looking at their different options. So Dr. Bookman, if you could click on placement, please.
Okay, so I now need to stop this sharing and then share a new tab.
Okay.
Is that what you want to show, Luz?
First place, yes. Exactly. So once students go to our regular college website and there's a link for placement, it takes them to our placement, which is right now housed in Canvas. And so before they get to...
I'm sorry, give me 1 second. There you go. There it is. Is that you want the placement test, right? I'm sorry.
I wanted to show the options because it shows the options here. Yes, exactly here. So the students are taken to this page in Canvas, which gives them two options. And you can see it tells them to help you decide which ESL level is best for you, please choose one of these two options. And I'll go over those options in a little bit, but I just wanted you to have a chance to see that they're told right away what their two options are. And then they can choose from the bottom of the page which option they want to do. Okay, Dr. Bookman, let's go back to the slideshow.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So they see the options, and basically they have two options, and they can do one or the other, or both. Once they go through those options, then they get to the point where they indicate their course selection. And following that, we recommend that they meet with a counselor to make an education plan and to see what courses are available in the level that they've chosen. And then we offer support with registration. Next slide, please. So the two options, before we get into this data here, I'll let you look at that data though while I go into the options. So we have our previous placement option, or our previous placement instrument was the KELSA. And it was always done in person. And we decided, because we're doing the pilot with the guided self-placement and we're still in that period of time where we're able to use our previously adopted instruments, we're still using the KELSA. But we have moved it into a Canvas shell so that it's fully online. So yes, the KELSA is still the test that students can take. It's a grammar multiple choice test, and that's the gist of that placement instrument. In addition to the KELSA, we're piloting the guided self-placement, and that's what we'll talk about in a little bit. But students are given the option. They can either take that grammar test or go through the guided self-placement process, both of which will give some idea, not really recommendations, but some idea of the level of the classes that might be appropriate for them based on how they've seen themselves in either the test or in the guided self-placement process. And so they have this suggested course level, but they can still choose whichever level they want when it comes to the end, and they make their course selection. So they can either do one or the other, or they can do both. And if they do both, they can choose, whichever one they want. The whole process is about empowering students to understand the levels, to understand the expectations, and then to make an informed decision for themselves based on that information. It is really scary for students. A lot of students, it's really intimidating and scary for a lot of them to do that. So you can see in this data here, just in our pilot, and this has been for our placement cycle for placing students into courses this fall. As I said, we still offer the KELSA, and so out of all of the students who went through assessment to go through an assessment or placement process, only 17% of those students chose to try the guided self-placement. Out of that 17%, 33% of those also took the KELSA. So those were students who really wanted to gauge, both options and see their level based on both. And out of those who completed the guided self-placement, so this is out of that 17%, I looked at the data at who actually enrolled and who enrolled in the level that they placed themselves into based on the guided self-placement. 27% who completed the guided self-placement are currently enrolled in the course that they placed themselves into. And I did want to just mention that sometimes students will, in the spring, think about coming to school in the fall. And so these are students who were taking this placement or engaging in the placement process at some point prior to this fall. And some students just were not able to enroll for various reasons. So that's the data that we have so far.
From the very beginning, how we got started with the development process, I see someone typed in the chat box that you are starting to develop your self-guided self-placement. So how we got started was back in fall 2018. Our department chair approached three of us, faculty, the full-time faculty, and asked us if we are interested in being involved in developing this. And we said yes. So we formed a community of practice, a group, and we started with a timeline. So we typed up all the tasks that needed to be done with the December 2018 deadline in mind, and we work backwards. So from a meeting with the testing department to what kind of assessment we want to have. We looked at the English department's guided self-placement as a model, or should I say as an inspiration, because we added our own twist. And so this timesheet was really helpful to make sure we stay on task, and we had deadlines for each task. So we developed this guided self-placement within a 3-month period. We only had some videos to record in January because of student availability. We wanted student testimonials, but the placement was done in fall 2018. So I'm going to show you, somebody asked, is this in the Canvas shell? Yes, we are hosting the GSP in our Canvas. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. I need to quickly switch tabs. So students are given access to this Canvas shell. They log in. There is a introduction page. As Dr. Garcia mentioned, they choose the guided self-placement for basically self-assessment, or they can choose to go into the KELSA page and do the old instrument that we had. So if they choose the guided self-placement, again, an overview of the steps, they see this page where they can see there are 4 steps, and at the end there is a feedback form for us to evaluate our guided self-placement. So they start with a self-evaluation survey, and then they see one writing prompt, a reading sample, and writing sample from each of our 4 levels. Then they will see videos of us or me explaining each level and student testimonials for that level. And then at the end, they fill out a form to make a choice and choose a level. And then they fill out another form to give us feedback. So I'm going to show you quickly what each of these steps looks like. In the first step, the self-evaluation survey, the questions basically ask them to reflect on their previous writing and academic reading and writing experience. So question 1, I have completed an academic reading and writing course at Santa Rosa Junior College or any other institution. Then we mapped, or we linked each question to one of our credit levels. So if you have never taken an academic reading and writing course at JC or any other college, then important to note, academic reading and writing skills are introduced in ESL 373. So indirectly, we're giving them a suggestion. Now, the law prohibits any direct advice to tell the students, I think you should take this course, or at your level, this course is right for you, because it has to be completely chosen by the student without any pressure from the counselor or instructors. So we wanted this to be as indirect as possible. So we just said, remember, this level, this question matches with this level. In the second question, I feel comfortable writing a well-organized paragraph. Important to note, paragraph writing is taught in ESL 371. Then I know how to write an academic essay. Important to note, academic essay writing is introduced in ESL 372. Then I feel comfortable writing a well-organized essay using credible sources. Important to note, ESL 373 focuses on well-organized academic essays using multiple sources. And then ESL 100, I feel comfortable writing different types of academic essays and working independently on research papers. And finally, ESL 10, which is our transfer level college composition course. I can understand complex text, and I have previously studied academic essays. I would like to complete the English composition requirement for my general education, and or I would like to learn about different written genres in academic and workplace settings. So important to note, ESL 10 is equivalent to English 1A transfer level. And then at the end, they choose a level based on your reflections in this self-assessment. Which ESL level do you think is the best choice for you? If you're interested in taking non-credit ESL, then they can click on this link and go to the non-credit placement. After reading these questions, the students might realize they're not even ready for credit. So once they submit the quiz or the form, they can proceed to the next step, which is the sample reading, writing, and prompts. So from 371 all the way to ESL 10, for each level, they will see a sample writing prompt. And these are sample writing prompts from our final exams or final common assessments. So sample writing prompt in ESL 371, which is the lowest level, is plan, write, revise, and edit a one-paragraph summary of the reading. This is a sample writing of a student. And then this is a sample reading they would see in the common assessment. And then the next page would show a sample prompt, sample student writing, and sample reading for ESL 372. So in ESL 372, the prompt would be write a 4-paragraph essay in response to Why Save a Language by John McWhorter, and then understand the article, identify the main argument, analyze reasons provided by the author, agree or disagree with the main arguments of the author article. So you can see how it's progressively getting more difficult, and it shows in the prompt. So here's sample student writing, a 4-paragraph essay, and here's sample reading that the students read and respond to. ESL 373 is now a 5-paragraph essay. Oh, it's still a minimum 4-paragraph essay. Now it has to have a thesis statement. It has to have a combination of paraphrasing and direct quotations using MLA. Here's a sample student writing, and here's sample reading. In ESL 100, 5-paragraph essay. And here's sample student writing. As you can see, it gets longer with works cited page, and then sample reading, which in this case we used a TED Talk. Although we provided the students with the transcript of the TED Talk. And then finally in ESL 10, it's we move away from the 5-paragraph essay and we focus on genre analysis and genre criticism. So the prompt says, choose a genre, carefully examine its features, and develop a critique of the genre. Write a position paper stating and then developing a claim that evaluates some aspects of the genre's effects, and support your claim with evidence taken from the genre. And this sample student writing focuses on the genre of fairy tales and criticizes its shortcomings. And here is a sample reading taken from the textbook that we are using in ESL 10. We use this with permission from the authors. After the students look at the sample prompts, reading and writing, then they watch these videos. We work with the media department to shoot and edit one video for each level, and then we added student testimonials to each level. So I'm just going to play one for you. ESL 373 is a 9-unit Advanced Academic Reading, Writing, and Grammar course. In this course, you will read and analyze a complete novel or other full-length text. You will write several essays with clear theses and credible sources.
If you know how to write a simple essay, then this is your level. In 373, I learned how to write different kinds of essays and to find credible sources to support my argument.
By the end of ESL 373, you'll be prepared for college-level courses, including ESL 100. To succeed in this course, it'll be helpful if you are familiar with writing short essays. So we try to keep them short and, keep them to the point. We highlighted the important features of that course by pop-up words popping on the screen. So the students watch those videos, and then on the next page, they make a choice. It's a form. We put some contact information for our ESL counselors there, and then they make a choice what level they want, and then finally they give us feedback on the guided self-placement. I'm going to go through some of the feedback that the students gave us. So I need to switch windows again, back to our presentation. One question in the forum was, which component of the guided self-placement helped you most to choose a level? And as you can see, the majority of students said the writing prompts and sample student writings, and then sample readings, then videos. 5% of the students said none of those were the deciding factor for them. The majority of students, when we asked them, how do you think the guided self-placement can be improved? The majority of students said it was just fine the way it was. They didn't suggest any improvements. When we asked them what other factors helped you choose the appropriate level, some of them said previous classes or levels they attended. And I put some quotes here from the students. Forgive the grammar and spelling mistakes. I try to keep them as they are to keep the student voice. So these are direct quotes from the students' feedback on our GSP. So they said things like attending ESL classes since the first level. So the guided self-placement didn't really change their mind. They just kept on with the pathway. I chose this level because it is almost the same in which I was last time I attended school. Because last semester I completed ESL 373. I'm already in this level because I passed the other levels. But only 5% of the people who took the GSP said that there was another factor involved in their decision. Some students just self-evaluated based on the guided self-placement. They said things like, according to how many vocabulary I don't understand from the sample readings and writings, reviewing my previously written essays and comparing them to the sample essays provided, my working class, and I think I have a strong vocabulary and I can write essays. Some students mentioned the recommendation from an instructor or a counselor. One student apparently took English 1A, found it too difficult, and then the instructors said, you're not ready, so they decided to take ESL 10. I had recently enrolled in English 1A at this college, but I was told by the instructor that my grammar was not good. I then found out about this course, ESL 10, and signed up. And another student said, meeting with a counselor helped me choosing my level. Some students mentioned recommendation from a friend or just because they wanted to be in the same level as their friends. I would like to the course ESL 371 with current friends. We can encourage each other. And my friend's recommendation is something another student said. We asked them, how can this self-placement be improved? and the majority of students said it's just good the way it is. I think it's perfect and simple for a new admitted student to choose their English level online. Nothing is very clear and helpful. All is good. I think it was very well explanatory. Actually, it is really good. I think this self-placement is good enough. Here are some comments, but some students did give suggestions for improvement. For example, some students suggested changes to the format or the components, make the stories shorter, and probably the student is referring to sample reading. More reading, writing samples, more questions in the self-evaluation survey. The videos should clearly show the different requirements from different course, shorter examples. That way is more comfortable to read. Okay. And then some students suggested additional components. Add a short self-evaluation test after each reading and writing sample. And this really makes sense because if they evaluate themselves after each level, probably it's more effective than reading all the 4 levels at the same time and then, thinking about them as a whole, and asking if you're familiar with that specific type of essay. We should try to write an essay to see which level fits our writing. The English department in our college actually is doing that. They're giving a prompt to the students and asking them to try writing. They don't grade it, nobody reads it, but it's for the students to try to write something. Add examples of homework, assignments, and other expectations. This is a good suggestion too. Add exercises for us to do in each placement, not only reading. Include short grammar exercises. So this one's tricky because according to AB 705 mandate, there can't be any tests. So if we give grammar exercises where they have to correct a sentence or fill in the blank, and then they can see that they got their answer wrong, that is a placement test, basically. So that's, that could be questionable, that type of item. Describe what kind of grammar you should know before taking each class. We mentioned a little bit about what they need to know before they take the class in the video, but including that in the course description would be helpful. And add a category of ESL classes and description to each class before the self-evaluation. Can't see it because there it is. So that we get to have an idea of what skills or levels we're aiming for. We didn't have that, and I think in our revision, we're going to add that, like a table description of each level, so that not only they can see the pathway, but they can see the description of each course. We have that in the video, but we don't have that in writing currently in our GSP. So this was the our GSP on Canvas Shell and student feedback.
Thank you. So we do have a lot of questions, and that's the part that we're getting to right now, which is the discussion. So I will, I think instead of responding and writing to the questions, we can address those in the third part here. But before we get to that, let's hear from you. And what is your school currently using for student placement? If you have a guided self-placement, what does it look like? If you're working or interested in a guided self-placement, what do you envision it to look like? And so maybe we'll focus on those two. Our moderator, who is here, is able to allow you access to your webcam and microphone so that we can hear and see you. We would just ask that if you have a question, you type in either into the chat or into questions, I have a question, and then we'll give you the mic and the screen. So if you just type in, I have a question, that will alert us to highlight you to be able to engage with. But while we're doing that, we can look at the questions that have come up and respond to them. So Dr. Bookman, were there any that you wanted to address?
So many questions. There are questions in the chat box, and then there are questions in the questions tab.
Right.
Should we go through the questions in the question tab?
Sure. I did start answering some of them, but you can give your own take on the answers. It might help to give a different perspective also.
Okay. Somebody asked, so they work at UC, and UC is not bound to AB 705, but somebody asked what are the benefits of using guided self-placement. It's from an equity lens, and that's what gave impetus to AB 705. So it's something I think the university has to do research on and track data to see how the placement test is placing students, especially students whose English is their second language, and minority students who are typically considered underprepared for academic reading and writing. If you collect data and track the students to see the retention number and completion rates in the ESL department, their ESL courses, transition to your college composition course, English college composition course that is transferable, or you are in university, that is a part of their bachelor degree, then what is that rate? If you see that students who are tested into a remedial course are not successful, then this placement test is not doing them any favor. So then a guided self-placement may empower them to take charge of their own learning. If they choose the level, then they are more invested to do their best, to put more effort in succeeding in that level. ESL students who are placed in lower ESL classes, they're resentful. A lot of them don't believe they deserve to be there. And that would not only add to the cost of their education, but also will hold them back, and they may drop out. So maybe starting with a survey to see how students feel about their placement result, and then tracking the data to see how successful they are. For me, it's a question of empowerment for students to choose what they want to do. And of course, you have to provide resources from the department. The university has to give the resources that you need to make sure students succeed. So yeah, it's an equity problem. What do the students see when they complete the GSB? So they see the final page, which is a feedback form. So basically, they see a page that says, "Thank you for completing this survey." The decision is made while they're completing the GSB, while they're doing the self-evaluation survey, and at the end, there's a question. So which course are you choosing? They have to choose a course, and they answer a whole bunch of other questions about how good this test was, how can it be improved, and that's it. They don't see anything specific. At that point, they speak to when they're done with the GSB, they speak to with our test coordinator, who will then help them. Is that right, Dr. Garcia? Do they get once they're done, they speak to the test coordinator, and the test coordinator will help them register for the right course, for the course they chose?
Not quite. I wish it were that smooth, because it's all done remotely. So normally in person, they would be in the assessment office, and that would be right there. But because this is done remotely, not necessarily. And so one of the final screens, as Dr. Bookman showed, is the contact information for counselors. And yes, we are fortunate to have 3 ESL counselor specialists, one of whom, actually, I don't believe any of them are 100% to ESL, but a good portion of their time is dedicated to ESL and non-credit. We have a robust non-program. But it is up to the students to follow up and reach out to a counselor. And then it is up to the student to enroll in the course. And that's why I mentioned the data, and this is in response to one of the questions. I mentioned that only 27% of those who took the GSP are currently enrolled in the class that they indicated at the end of the GSP. And that is because many students who go through the placement process do not enroll at all. They may be testing it out, they might be just considering it. And so that 27% who enrolled in the course that they indicated, as Dr. Bookman said, through the guided self-placement, at the end, there's a place where they're asked, based on this right now, what class would you choose? And that's captured so that we can then track how, like that 27% is what I have right now, how many actually are enrolled in the level that they indicated right then. That doesn't mean that they went with the KELSA. And I didn't gather those numbers, but I could. I'll just have to look and see if any of those who are currently enrolled are enrolled based on KELSA recommendation rather than guided self-placement. But to be honest, I just didn't look up all those students or pull that data, but we could find that. So I'm not sure if students were more likely to choose the guided self-placement or the KELSA for registration. But it is important to know that it is all for empowering the students. And part of that is that they're the ones who need to follow up and move forward. It's really difficult, I think, when it's online. It's much easier when they're in a supportive environment, in the location, and we can help guide them and support them. And one thing I could do that's helping me think is maybe we can ask for follow-up on all the students who did not enroll for the fall. We can reach out and to see what their plans are for the spring now that we're working on spring scheduling right now. So thank you for that idea.
Thank you. Denise, you asked, is there a listening audio samples per level? No, we're only focusing on reading and writing skills. We do offer listening and pronunciation conversation class, but they're not a part of the pathway for students to complete and transfer to a transfer level ESL or English composition course. So we then include those. But now the pathway doesn't really mean much anyway, because the students can go into any level they want. They don't have to go through the pathway. Do you have counselors? Sally asked, do you have counselors specifically dedicated to ESL? Yes, we do. What do the students see when they complete the GSP? They just see the feedback form and contact information to our counselors. Okay, great. Debbie, with your GSP development. So I heard from our director of student success who oversees the testing, that students tend to choose the KELSA over the guided self-placement, which is interesting. How do you provide access to Canvas to students who haven't used Canvas and don't have computers?
Dr. Rickman, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. Definitely students choose to take the KELSA over taking the guided self-placement. And that data we have very clear that it's when given the choice of one or the other or both, the majority of students are choosing the KELSA rather than the guided self-placement or both. And then, so anecdotally, they might be choosing the KELSA over the guided self-placement indication that they make, but that part I'd like to run and get those actual numbers, because that's a good question. But definitely students are comfortable taking and they opt to take the KELSA rather than go through the process. So that's interesting because it's so new. I think it's, it just seems so new to them.
Thank you for that clarification. So students who are not familiar with Canvas and don't have computers, that's the $1 million question with everything going online. Marginalized students who have little access to internet or computer or no computer literacy, that's a big problem. That's a huge challenge for sure. Do we have support for that, Dr. Garcia?
I'm not sure, but that's a good question for us to follow up with. So most students who are new to our institution have not used Canvas. And so what happens when it's hard to not have the power to share the screen, but when they are at the general college website and then it says, to see your options, click here, it actually takes them to our Canvas shell. So they don't realize, oh, I'm in this Canvas thing. It does ask them to accept the course enrollment is basically what it is, but it asks them to accept in order to move forward. But it's kind of automatic that they move forward. And so once they move forward, they're in Canvas, but it looks like a website to them. They don't need to log in. They don't need to understand what Canvas is. And we don't use the term Canvas for students. What I am wondering, and I don't think we did this originally because we were designing this pre-COVID. And what we might be able to do, Dr. Bookman, if we can remember this, is put on there if at any point you need help, call, and then they can call during business hours, someone can get right with them because we have remote support. If they're doing it in the middle of the night or whenever, they can leave a message. But we didn't put that because when we created this, we still thought they would be in an assessment, physical location with our support staff standing by. But that is probably something we can add, that if at any point there's a problem, have a number right there to call. So that's something else that I kind of just brainstormed looking at that. But Leslie, definitely that is an issue. If they don't have computers, they could do it on their phone. Otherwise, that's just the issue we're having right now with everyone having to be remote. That's just the nature of what we have right now. If we are able to return to an in-person environment and we continue to use the same instrument, it'll be like before, probably with just social distancing in a large lab with support staff able to assist them as they go forward. That's also a reason that we haven't quite transitioned to this type of instrument for our non-credit students. Our non-credit students are much more beginning level students and typically have less experience with and computers in our area. And so that right now, it's not something we've tried with our non-credit population yet.
Hello.
Hi.
I might, I'm sorry. We might have to wrap up because we're a little over. And I think, I'm not sure. I wish I could leave you in the room to continue answering your questions, but I think if I leave, the stream might have to end, unfortunately.
Okay. Thanks for the reminder. Thank you, everybody, for attending. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to, share our experiences developing this guided self-placement and help in any way we can. Thank you for attending and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you all. Thanks.